This
Yeah.
conference will now be recorded.
Second virtual meeting, quick reminder, try to keep your mic off if you're not talking so there's not feedback. Pretty full agenda, so let's dive in. Are there any general announcements? Mike, do you have any?
Not specifically. Good evening to everyone. I guess that's not really an announcement, but happy to see all of you.
Good to see you. So I can't tell if we have members of the public, but we have around 10 minutes for public comments. If anybody wants to make any, we ask that you keep it around 2 minutes. So feel free to speak up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I just want to say that I hope you will be recording this and uploading it so that people can view it if they weren't able to make it tonight. This is Tanya Garments, 102 Worth Street.
Thank you. Yeah, these are all recorded, and Caitlin posts them. Caitlin, or no?
Kyle.
I'll post them. And are they on the site?
Great. Well, thank you.
Caitlin, where do we find the recordings after these are at?
I have to get Kyle to tell us. I will put it on the website, I guess. He has someplace he puts it.
Okay.
They get uploaded to the city's YouTube channel. That's where you can see meetings that are posted.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so they'll be there. Anybody else? All right. You want to take a couple minutes and review the minutes from the last meeting? They're in the packet that Mike and Caitlin sent out last week.
Where can the public view the minutes?
Those are posted on our website under agendas and minutes, which is KingstonCityLandBank.org.
Are you looking for a motion to accept the minutes?
If we're ready for that, that's fine.
I'll make a motion to accept them. Approve them.
I'll second that.
Right. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? I think the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. So yeah, we have a new ED. He's had an extremely busy month. Really doing a ton. So Mike, take it away. Tell us everything.
Thank you, Mr. Board Chair. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see all of you. I really do appreciate your confidence in me and also your patience over the past month as I tried to hound you all down to have private one-on-one video calls. So I've spoken with everyone. I think Bartek was the first and the last, but I really appreciate the opportunity just to touch base with you in person as much as we can during these times. And I hope that we get back to being able to see each other face to face soon. So these updates can be more real time than they have been the past month. My agenda is relatively brief, but I can unpack portions of it to the extent you like. Some of this will be covered further down in the committee report out. So if that is the case, I may just mention it. First and foremost, to go through the development progress. As we talked about at the last board meeting, there are 5 homes that I believe will be talked about in the acquisition disposition committee section. As to which those 5 homes are, They have been identified as being the first phase of homes that we will develop. So that's great. That took a long time. I know of sifting and winnowing far before I ever got here, and I really do appreciate everyone's efforts in prioritizing these 5 homes. And I think for various reasons, they are the best 5 that we can move forward with. So within those 5 homes, we will begin the process of what I would call kind of cleanouts of those homes. Before you begin anything related to construction, you have to get everything out of there. So that is the current priority on those 5 homes, is to get them cleaned out and to make sure that they're available for environmental groups to go in and do their work. We did have our first home, which was already in fair enough of condition for someone to go in. So they conducted what's called a phase 1 environmental review. That's a necessary requirement under our grant funders, and it's just a good practice. So the phase 1 report thankfully came back with very little potential environmental conditions. There may be a buried underground oil tank. We're going through the process of verifying that is the case and procuring quotes, getting quotes to have that tank removed if it is there. That's my update on the development process. I know it's obviously a little bit thin and it's not what I'd like, but I give you my commitment that every month you'll see more and more, and we'll be talking more and more in person more frequently, that you'll be so bored with this that by the time you hear me give my summary, you'll be apprised of all the details, and there will be many. Moving down to the services that the land bank is procuring, the most important of which this month at least has been legal services. So the land bank is currently in agreement with Goldstein Hall, which is a firm that's based, legal firm that's based in New York City as well as in the Mid-Hudson Valley. They have extensive experience working with land banks, affordable housing developers, contractors, community land trusts, and other facilitators of a lot of the work I think the land bank here in Kingston will be undertaking. So I'm very happy to have them on board. They will be focused on 3 major areas for the current agreement that we have with them, the first of which will be corporate governance within the land bank. So just taking a look at what we have in place, what we maybe should have in place, what we maybe shouldn't have in place, just from a holistic perspective, objectively just checking it against the laws of the land, the reporting requirements, and just kind of the general structure of our corporate culture, corporate governance, excuse me, and general culture. That will be item number 1. The second item they'll be working with us on includes the acquisitions of the properties from the city of Kingston to the land bank. That is a process that obviously will be focusing on the first 5 homes, and then many more to come down the line. The second item that relates to real estate that the Goldstein Hall will be focused on, real estate acquisitions and dispositions, will be the disposition part of it. So we will be working with Goldstein Hall to come up with a structure with the board's awareness and approval as to how these properties may be sold by the land bank and to whom and by what process and with what restrictions. And this will dictate the full fabric of the structure of what the land bank will essentially be producing. Acquiring the homes from the city is a big first step, but how they leave the land bank is incredibly important. And so that will be the main focus of what Goldstein Hall will be working with us on. Any questions? Feel free to cut me off. I know I'm kind of rambling, but please feel free to jump in if you have questions.
I have a question, if it's okay, I'll interrupt, why not?
Please.
Do you need anything from us? Do you need anything, a board action or anything from us to obtain the services of this firm?
No, sir.
Okay, that was easy.
Thank you for the question. So moving on down my agenda, there's a section here on county updates. For awareness, just generally, there have now been 3 meetings that have taken place that have taken place with my participation with the county to talking about what it might look like if the county and the city were to combine into one land bank. My updates are brief, and in summary, details have not emerged in any way, shape, or form for my awareness about how any of this might take place. I am having regular conversations with the county just to keep the lines of communication open, but just for everyone's awareness, and I know I've talked about this on our private conversations, any change to the Kingston City Land Bank would require approval by the board of the Kingston City Land Bank. So it would be something that would come to you and you would be made aware of it as soon as I was, but I have no further updates about conversations with the county. We're still talking and the details have not emerged, if any.
And
And
Michael,
then, I'm sorry, Amari?
regarding that, I'm not sure where I saw mention of that. I don't know if it was on the county website or in Freeman or somewhere, but I was a little surprised to see someone make mention that there is a potential for the land bank to expand to countywide, and I just hope that in the future we can help mitigate that. You know, if those kind of conversations are happening, that like it's not just leaking out in pieces, because I think that confuses the public, especially a lot of people we've been trying to engage through door knocking over the last year and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of like skepticism about what we're doing in general. So, I mean, I think it's a fine thing if we do expand it to the county. That's something we can talk about, but it just feels like that kind of information should be shared once it's, you know, more of a potential. Like I said, I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly where I saw that, but it was somewhere, and I was like, "What? I don't know anything about this."
Yeah, I've read a few news articles myself, Omari, and thank you for that input. I will share the information that I have when I have it, and I have up to this point.
Could I just jump in real quick? Just and I think from our perspective, you know, we do things a little bit differently here, kind of in city government slash, you know, we for the county executive, you know, to kind of have those conversations. He worked with some of the legislators to be able to basically, where I saw it was to put forward a memorializing resolution, basically giving the county executive the ability to talk to us. And so that's how they kind of wanted to officially start the conversation, because they didn't want to start a conversation with us if the county legislature wasn't going to be supportive of having that conversation being had. And so it was kind of a formal process that they went through to be able to just start a conversation. I know many of us are just used to calling someone up and saying, hey, what do you think about this? But the county took a little bit more formal of approach to be able to start the conversation. And I think that that's what caught all of us off guard. And I know as soon as I saw the resolution, I shared it with you guys immediately. But, you know, the first time I saw the resolution was also, you know, on the county website. And so it's just a formal kind of process that they went through. And I understand why they had to do it that way. But, you know, at least for now going forward, you know, Mike is keeping all of us, I think, you know, in the loop now, which is great.
Definitely.
Mike, who is your point of contact at the county? Is this through the planning department, or is it some other department you're engaging with?
Sure. I believe it's with the Deputy County Executive's office, so not necessarily through the planning department. You're welcome. So one last update I had under my other section, which is my catch-all for things that I either forget when I send out my agenda or they come up last minute. Just for general awareness by the board, due to the good graces of the mayor of the city of Kingston, I think the Kingston City Land Bank will be using some space for its office at 17 Hoffman, just off Broadway near Zaborski's. We will keep you in the loop as to how that progresses in terms of what the space looks like, but it will be sufficient for Caitlin and I, and have another desk up there for someone else and others to stop by and see what it looks like. It's pretty rough right now, and it will take us a little while, but I just want to know you. I wanted to let you know that we do have a space, it looks like.
Sorry, where is that space, you say?
Sure, it's 17 Hoffman Street. If you're familiar with, like me, if you go to Zaborski's a lot, just off Broadway, which is the antique salvage place. Yeah, it's the former, it is the current park space, and was previously a space that was used by City Bus until it was vacated.
Mike, I think there's a staffing update to share as well.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you. Would you like me to do it, Daniel?
you go right ahead.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Just to give the board an update, the housing rehab specialist that had been previously working with the land bank is no longer doing so because that person is no longer an employee of the city of Kingston. So in advance of this and ongoing, a search is being conducted to find the replacement for that person to fill that role and to obviously meet the requirements of that position. I think it's a move in the right direction because given the volume of work that is coming up with the land bank and given the legal structure that we're putting around things to enable things to move forward more quickly, I think the time is right to work with maybe a different skill set than had previously been in place. And specifically, I'm talking about scopes of work on construction projects, owner's rep services during construction to administer in a pretty formal way the contracts themselves. And I'm very excited about the opportunity to move in that direction, and that is the staffing update. So stay tuned, watch this space, and please contact me or obviously anyone else offline if you'd like to talk about some potentials, people who you think might be able to fill that role.
Is there a job description available that the board could see, just if we do know people, or
yeah, I believe I can share that. I'd be happy.
And I guess without kind of getting too far in the weeds, we've talked about this a lot, but I think it might be worth discussing a little bit of kind of, I think there have been some shifts in sort of how we're picturing all of this is going to work. So I think from, at least speaking for myself, from the inception of the land bank, there was a lot of conversation around the land bank itself is going to come in and do all of these rehabs, and it's been, you know, that's pretty much what we're going to do. And I think we've intelligently sort of shifted away from that. So could you maybe talk about how that structure is likely to work out and kind of why
Sure.
it makes sense?
Totally, I'd be very happy to. It's my belief that organizations should generally try to understand their internal structure and then play to their strengths. And I think a land bank is doing its best work when it's functioning as such and not trying to overextend or maybe duplicate the efforts of other pieces of the puzzle to get families into safe, decent, affordable homes as quickly as possible. So while I understand that there was much history and discussion that is still to be continued about whether or not the land bank can possibly, in a measured way, step into the shoes of an affordable housing developer or a general contractor, I think given the scale and the scope of the work that we're discussing, the land bank is probably most well positioned to serve as an intermediary between the families and people that need to live in these homes and the people that need to perform the work to get those homes ready for occupancy. So it's a long-winded way of saying I think the land bank will be working with affordable housing developers and or general contractors will be performing a majority of the construction work. Getting into the weeds a little bit with what may happen on the legal structure side for the dispositions to those end users. It may be the case that the land bank holds title during construction so that there are certain benefits that could be passed on to either affect the affordability of the home and or the purchase price that's paid, or the land bank may just be selling the homes for a purchase price that of course is negotiated with the end user, being the family that moves into the home, the general contractor, or the affordable housing developer. But I think by structuring it that way and by putting together kind of a plan of approach to all of these homes, the land bank will be in a very good position to continue to keep up with the volume of work that's intended to take place and not get caught up in the details of learning things that others already know how to do and have a lot of specialization. So if the land bank is able to produce good scopes of work from my perspective and put those good scopes of work out to a public request for proposal and get good proposals back from good contractors and work with its attorney, the land bank's attorney, to negotiate the best possible terms of the agreement with each individual purchaser, potential purchaser, I think the land bank is doing the type of work that the land bank is intended to do. And with that structure in place, I think the land bank can work with many more homes and serve many more families than if it were to consider itself to be another type of organization than it is. Now, that being said, the land bank may, there's one home that I know Daniel and I have worked very hard to look at the scope and just put our heads around it to see if that might be something that the land bank could be, and test out if it could be a contractor owner. And that would be the first home, among the first homes that I think we would acquire. I think it's a more straightforward home, and it kind of tests the theory that I know has been discussed for a while as to whether or not the land bank should be a contractor and affordable housing developer. And in the meantime, I see the other 4 homes probably not going through the land bank as owner, as contractor affordable housing developer. But those are my thoughts, and I think that's how the process has evolved. Daniel, maybe I described it a little too wordy, but is that the type of description that's helpful?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I want to, be very clear that this is I think it's a conversation much more about efficiency and speed and volume than it is about any kind of change in our ethos.
No.
I think that it's a much better way to create affordable housing on a large scale. So I think everyone should take any opportunity they want to talk to Mike about it. He can certainly speak on it with more authority than I do, but I think he has a very sophisticated understanding of how these things work and work well. And I think it's a really exciting kind of new chapter for us. So, yeah. Any questions or comments or?
Just my 2 cents. I agree with you guys. You got 5 houses to do in a year. That's no small undertaking. And if you've not been a general contractor, this organization hasn't been a general contractor in the past. I think you only way to be successful is the model that you guys are moving forward on. So I think it's a good idea. So we'll see where it goes.
All right, should we move into committee reports? Finance, I have up first. Omari.
So I think, Michael, are you comfortable taking the lead on this?
Of course.
Introducing this new budget. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Okay, so what is being proposed is in your board package. This is a change to the operating budget that was approved, I believe, around, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, the end of January-ish for the Kingston City Land Bank. What is shown in the board package are the difference between the two. So what we did was outline what had been approved and what was seeking approval tonight. I can go into detail on anything that's of interest to you, and we can talk about it, but I will just say that the changes that are being proposed are made in the context of having a reasonable and customary operating budget for a land bank of this size to proceed with this type of work in this time frame. And I can dig into anything you like.
So, Karen.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'll follow up after you.
I guess to me, it's if you look at the budget, there's some fairly significant changes, but they're based really on, I think, much more realistic expectations of the type of funding that we're going to need. This is also a pretty important document in terms of being able to speak with our anonymous donor about both this year and future funding. There's been conversations and kind of soft commitments, but nothing really formalized about future funding. So that conversation is hopefully happening within the next month. And so it would be great to have an approved budget But yeah, some things changed, like based on the office. There was going to be the Franklin Street office this year. That's not happening. So those expenses shifted. Mike, are there like any really significant portions you think bear discussion?
Sure. Yeah, the one that I think I'd just like to highlight for everyone's awareness is a shift from the previous budget into what the current budget proposes. I think it's what the land bank was already hoping that it could do anyway, but now this actually gives budget approval and also highlights how the land bank would probably be made whole for those expenses. And what I'm talking about are the property maintenance section of the budget. So previously, I think with the best of intentions, the land bank was proceeding in kind of a piecemeal fashion to help here and help there and potentially, you know, put out not actual fires, but try to solve problems of the highest priority, be that what they may on a current day. This budget that's proposed is based on the previous year's worth of expenses for landscaping and snow removal by the land bank, and now contemplates being able to have that ability across the whole portfolio of 36 homes. However, it's a conservative budget. This isn't the amount of money that will be spent. It's the amount that's being asked to be authorized to be spent. So there wouldn't be any more need to come back if something were to change on it, as long as it didn't exceed these budget amounts. But I would like to highlight that the section in the budget that talks about how those are reimbursed back to the land bank. And so previously, I don't think there'd been a real formal plan for this, but now with council on board and it being a pretty reasonable, customary and industry standard way of talking about purchase price, the seller being the Kingston City Land Bank to the end user being the contractor, affordable housing developer, would seek as part of the purchase price discussion to put these costs in and be made whole at the sale. So it's a way of not only showing that the Kingston City Land Bank is concerned about property maintenance on homes that it owns and controls, but also that it will be made whole from a financial standpoint when it sells those homes out of the land bank. That's really the one that I would want to highlight more than any others, as just kind of a change maybe from there's a thing over here or a thing over there. We have a few ideas that have been discussed, nothing finalized, but this gives the land bank the ability to really put some agreements in place and have lawns be mowed and snow be shoveled, and also to be made whole for those costs and be paid back.
Daniel, I think one thing I wanted to just mention, and I think that this is something that's a kudos to both you and Mike for getting all of this done, is the fact that the enterprise grant is actually now a part of the budget, and you can see that down under development costs. So you basically see the potential for, yes, costs coming out of the budget, but also the reimbursement potential coming back in. And I just think that it's great that we are actually now to that place with enterprise, because I know for a while it took us quite some time to be able to actually get into contract and get to the place where we actually have this relationship with enterprise. And now we are. And that, you know, the fact that we have this, you know, $500,000 grant that, you know, we intend to start to spend down in 2020, I think is a really good thing. And it's really great to be able to actually see it in what hopefully will be an approved budget.
Yeah, $500,000 is kind of cool. All right.
I just have,
yeah.
sorry, I just have a couple questions under the personal services section. On the legal representation, so there was an increase there. Is part of that to projected as being sort of like establishing, process and templates for acquisition and disposition, and so that might be sort of proportionately a little lower year to year into the future? I'm just wondering how that number was reached.
Sure. Daniel, do you mind if I jump in? Okay. So the way that legal services agreement is currently structured is a $10,000 retainer for corporate governance. So that's the internal mechanics of the land bank. You'll notice that the request for approval in the budget is 50. You'll also notice that it says some or all of this may be included under the enterprise grant. The second bucket under the legal expenses contract would be per closing from the city of Kingston to the Kingston City Land Bank. That's currently contemplated $1,000 per home for the first 5 homes. That's $5,000. Now you're up to $15,000. And I think as a testament to kind of the flexibility of the firm that we're working with, the other items related to the disposition and a lot of heavy structuring that's going to have to come in place with what comes out the back of the land bank and any other future sales that may come to the land bank that aren't part of the city common council resolution, those are not defined as far as costs. And I think that's in the spirit of reaching an agreement with a law firm that understands they have to learn what they don't know first before they try to price it. But all this to say it is reasonable and customary for the legal expenses associated with those dispositions to be included in the real estate development budget. Enterprise has confirmed this. So it is eligible for reimbursable expense under the enterprise grant, but just to be doubly conservative in case some things don't fit into that bucket, the amount that's in that budget is pretty good. If that answers.
Yeah, I wasn't questioning the amount or whether it's an eligible expense, just purely how it got there.
Sure.
Since it was a larger amount from what was projected back in January. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really
be conservative.
Where that question came from. Thank you. And then under insurance, can you explain what that insurance is for? Is that just for?
Be happy to. So the insurance that's contemplated here in this line item is just for directors and officers insurance for the land bank operations. It would not be construction insurance if the land bank were to take title. That construction, the building insurance is quite expensive, but it is also eligible to be included under the enterprise grant. So that's the way of parsing that out. Our current expenses to date is roughly $9,000. So barring any needs for additional insurance coverage, any changes, just trying to be conservative, was increased to $15,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike, is it also fair to say that the legal went up a little bit too, because we're asking the attorneys for quite a bit more, I think, than we were sort of relying on Mark for. You know, they have a lot more valid experience in this area, and I think are in a much better position to advise on policy and everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's a specialized firm in a very small pool of firms who do this type of work, and it's a larger lift than what the land bank had been receiving previously. Although, no, I think it's the best possible agreement that we could enter into with, I think, the best possible firm that could be helping us with this work. So, but it is a lot more work than had been done previously.
Can I just ask, I assume there's a memorandum discussing the reason that why you've chosen them, why they're the most qualified for the file. Because I know it's in our bylaws and in the stuff that establishes land banks, professional services acquisition can be done by best qualified. This sounds to me like the best qualified firm. We just have to make sure we have a paper trail that shows that.
Absolutely. The section under the policy that I would have referenced for the purposes of making this decision, I think, is 53-1, which would have to do with extenuating circumstances and specialization. But if you like, Bob, I'd be happy to send you something that codifies that in a different way.
Yeah, well, I don't need to see. I just think we ought to have something in our files in the event that we're audited that shows that, you know, it was a qualifications-based selection. That's all.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Okay, so if there aren't more questions, comments, concerns, if I could move to approve this revised 2020 operating budget. Can I get a second?
I'll second that, Daniel.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Budget passes. Thank you, everyone. All right. Bartek, are you doing communications?
I am. All right. All right. So we met earlier in May, and much of what we discussed in the committee meeting now is a little bit void, but I can go through that. So first thing we discussed was a press release to announce the hiring of Michael and also the addition of the 3 board members. We decided that this would instead be a news post on our website rather than do a formal press release at this time. We also discussed drafting a letter to the Common Council. And as we discussed last month, this is because we haven't communicated to this group as a board yet. However, we've decided that we should hold off on this until we've made a little bit more progress with acquiring the first 5 properties and have a few milestones in place to show that we're a functioning organization, and also have something that we can promote the schedule, also promote any opportunities for community participation, and that this would be a more fitting time to communicate with the Common Council. And I think that's all I want to say from the communication side. I've also put Mike in touch with Rebecca, who's the designer that did our website and the logo, so that you can have a conversation with her about needs going forward regarding the website and also design needs going forward. That's it from comms.
Great, thank you. Any questions, comments? Should we move on? Move on. So Aneshka isn't here, so I'm gonna talk governance. Quick note, I think, Serena, you're the only acknowledgement of fiduciary duties and responsibilities form that we still need back. So if you can send that to Caitlin as soon as possible, that'd be great. We have worked on some revisions to the bylaws for a couple reasons. So first, to catch up with our new reality of virtual meetings and virtual votes and all of that. So there's a little bit of new language, and you guys might, older board members might remember the last time we did this. There's a 30-day period between when these things are shown to the board and when we can vote on them. So at this point we can discuss it, but next time we would be voting. Mike, is that, I didn't screw that up, right? Okay, cool. So, and then the other thing was just trying to kind of like pull things together. We noticed in the bylaws, it talks about board attendance, but it doesn't actually say how many board meetings would have to be missed or attended before any kind of discussion would happen. So in order to kind of get ahead of that, we added language to detail what that looks like. So now the proposed language is missing more than 3 meetings within a year is grounds for removal. Doesn't necessarily mean removal, but it's grounds. And same thing with committee meetings. Sorry, and just if the organization has the capacity to host a conference call or video link, obviously we do. Attending a meeting remotely is acceptable. So yeah, basically if you miss more than 3, either in person or by Zoom or whatever, there will be a conversation. I think those are the only changes. Yeah. So yeah, so unless there's edits or concerns, we would vote on that at the July meeting. Or, sorry, June meeting, because this is technically the May meeting, right? So,
Yeah, can I just make a comment about the language though? First of all, the failure to do so will be grounds for removal. It sounds a little awkward given the first part of the sentence. I know that it in fact is grammatically correct or whatever, but it just sounds a little weird. Because like board members may not miss more than 3 board meetings failure to do so. It's just like it's a weird, you know, double negative thing or something. And then the part, I think, you know, with the, since we do have the capacity to hold conference calls and have a video link, I think that should be acceptable regardless of a work or health related reason. I think, you know, if people are on vacation or, you know, for any other reason, like sometimes people just be at home with their kids, like we shouldn't be that strict about showing up in person, I think, as long as you're on the call.
I agree with Omari on that. I think that's, yeah, why do you have to have, why those restrictions, and why not, you know, could be other things that would open up the possibility for remote connection. So I agree with you.
I think that's fair. Mike, I might need some guidance process-wise. So if we revisit this, well, we don't have 30 days until the June meeting anyway, so it would be July that we'd vote.
Right.
I'm basically asking, do we revise this right here, right now, or do we do it?
I'm not a lawyer, but if I were, the answer I would make up would be the bylaws strictly read that changes to the bylaws have to be introduced at a board meeting, and then 30 days after that, they may be voted on by the board to approve, so that if the board meeting is ongoing and you make changes and everybody looks at them, and then 30 days from now, everyone can vote on them. So my recommendation would be, I will work with you if you're okay with it to circulate to the board tonight any changes that are proposed on this call and have them done today so that 30 days from now the board could vote on them. Just so everyone sees it in writing, if that makes sense.
Does that sound all right? Thank you.
Welcome.
Could I just, I don't want to add any more to the, you know, to this conversation when I don't need to, but the one thing that I would mention actually in general about voting by proxy is that our new statement basically says that if the board is unable to meet in person, the board meeting will be held via live video and voting will be allowed via this method. I think that, you know, that's fine for us to be able to add that to our bylaws, but I think the one thing that we do have to be careful of is that because we are, you know, we are subject to open meetings law, when the state decides to institute open meetings law again, like we all can't necessarily kind of be home still and have an official meeting. And so like down below, when we change it to be able to allow board members to join committee meetings or whatnot, like we just can't have a majority of the members doing that and still have it count under traditional open meetings law. And so maybe in that section where it talks about if the organization has the capacity to host a conference call or video link, and there is a quorum of members present, something like that. We may just want to, we can't have like all three people from a committee meeting meet virtually under the regular rules and have that committee meeting count per open meetings law. So we just have to, we have to be careful about making it too available to everyone if we don't keep that into consideration.
Maybe we can wordsmith something that keeps it in compliance with open meetings law and also meets the things that are being discussed.
Yeah, I think if we can add the words in there somewhere that as long as there are a quorum, present, to comply with open meetings law, anyone else can also, so if we have 2 people, at a committee and there's 3 people on it and the third person joins via digital, then that's okay because the 2 people were a quorum. But if there's only 1 person in present and 2 people are virtual, technically that's not a quorum for open meetings law. Under normal circumstances, obviously now with the COVID thing, and maybe public officers open meetings law will never go back to the way it was, and maybe that would be a good thing. I don't know, maybe it's not, but that's just something we should keep in mind.
Could it be something like they could still attend via online, but it may not count toward their total number of required meetings attended if there's no quorum present?
Yeah, that's good language too.
Well, sorry if you can hear the ice cream truck. Mike, can I entrust you with taking a stab at this?
I'd be happy to. You'll have it tonight.
Beautiful, thank you. All right.
The ice cream truck is never anything bad to hear. It's always good to hear the ice cream truck.
Tell me in 3 months when it's like 7 times a day. I hear that song in my sleep. So, okay, and then acquisition and disposition. We are in a little bit of a funny spot because right before Mike came in, there was some traction on like getting the application done. We've sort of taken a step back from that pending legal review, and Mike has other ideas that I think this is kind of what we were waiting for, is somebody to come in and actually present things rather than us sort of trying to build stuff. That is in progress. We do have a meeting next Friday. This coming Friday, right?
First Friday of the month, yeah.
So hopefully, and I think we'll have at least some input on kind of lingering things with the disposition policy, that legal will be providing recommendations and reviewing for us. So no real progress there, but I think this next meeting will be interesting and fruitful. Yes.
Daniel, can I ask you a question? Just, I think because at some point today we're picking new committees, right? Or for newer board members to join committees. And so I think it would be great if before the Friday disposition committee meeting, if there's some way between whoever of us have been on it or Mike or whatever, but we get some kind of like overview, background, key questions or something to help people who are joining the committee read a little, not like endless reading, but just a short thing maybe to help people get up to speed so that when we meet on Friday, where newer folks have at least a tiny bit of background, because it has been quite a year plus with the disposition acquisition committee. So I think that might be something, if we're able to put that together, that would be great.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Are you talking more specifically about the history of our committee, or like just sort of broader?
Oh no, that's like a whole other, that's over drinks someday. I mean, like, just I think where we are and what are the questions, what's the sort of key tasks facing the committee in the next 3 months, because a lot of what the committee does, like our ability to get houses out, is contingent on finishing some stuff. And so I think it's more, yeah, like what are core tasks of the next 3 months? What are some of if there are documents to read? I'm not sure, like you said, if everything that was sort of worked on, we're starting from scratch, or yeah, I think just sort of not scratch, but with the disposition, yeah.
Yeah, Matt and I will talk tomorrow and try to put something together. And if you have anything to add, send it. And yeah, well, I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Ilana, can I ask a question? Is this what you're talking about beyond the disposition of real property policy that we have published?
Yeah. Yeah, because beyond that, the policy is all of the stuff that we actually need to get the, like, whether it's applications, procedures, manuals, RFPs, there has been a very long back and forth about what actually we need to have in place to sort of, and what the process is to get applications, solicit applications, make decisions on applications, write the application, all those things. And then I guess there's been questions from different folks on the committee over time. How can we most effectively embed as much affordability as possible in all of these things? Are there ways that we can offer preferences to certain groups of people, or can we not? Like all those types of things that still need to get figured out. So I just thought framing some of that in advance could be helpful for us to come in with a little bit of a set of understanding of where we are, and knowing that for all of us this is new because we have a new director now, which is very exciting.
I don't know, there's not visuals for the public, so I can't raise my hand. I would like, this is Tanya Garment talking again. I wanted to ask a question before the end of the meeting.
Go right
Is now
ahead.
an okay time?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I'm looking at the agenda that was posted on the city website, and I don't see any link to the Kingston City Land Bank website. It would be helpful for citizens to be able to know that that's there, especially since the agenda itself doesn't have an agenda packet. So the things that you guys are referencing, like the budget, there's no link here for that. And then the Kingston City Land Bank website, it does not have this month's agenda listed. And it also does not have last month's minutes. So there's some information that's missing for the public. And I also am wondering, where do we look to find the information that you're reviewing this evening, such as the budget?
So, hi, thank you. This is Mike Gilliard. Thank you for asking that question. I think the best answer we can give is that to the extent that it's part of something that's generally released to the public, it will be. And I think in that case, it would be posted on kingstoncitylandbank.org.com.
So the budget, while discussed at the meeting tonight, is not yet available to the public.
That's correct. It's not. And quite frankly, I just need to make sure I understand exactly what needs to be put out there and what is for internal kind of board review discussion and what is part of the process that's public facing. Just full transparency.
And so the items that are available for the public this evening, are there any, and are they on the website or on the city website?
The agenda is the item that's been released for this meeting.
Okay, and I also would request that you put some information on the website of how to view the meetings when they're posted on the city website, because the agendas and minutes section of the city website, if you dig deep enough or you're familiar enough with the Granicus system, you can see a link to the city website. But since you do have a website which you are relying as a primary resource, I would hope that you would put a link there to the city's YouTube channel, please.
That's a really good point. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're all kind of catching up to these changes in our lives, so we will try to do better. And if you have specific suggestions around that, if you wouldn't mind either emailing me or Caitlin or Mike, that would probably help us. Just
And I'm so sorry. One more thing is that it was a little confusing being a call-in attendant, knowing who was talking when. And what many of the other boards and commissions and the Common Council is doing is they're announcing who's speaking before they speak, because otherwise you're not really sure who's talking, because we don't have a visual like you do. But I will write email for anything else I think of. Thanks so much.
This is Daniel. Thank you. We will try to be better. And thank you for your patience with us. Just to round out acquisition disposition, kind of pending our funding and schedule and everything. We're still on track with 5 houses. This is essentially what Enterprise approved in order to get it into contract and get those funds. So after lots and lots of consideration, staff's recommendations are 248 Main Street, 177 Murray, 237 East Union. That's the one that Mike referenced earlier as being sort of an easier job, easier to kind of get our feet wet as possible developer. But yeah, I've been in the house. It's a simple one. And 64 Van Buren. Those decisions, I think Mike has a lot of insight on. I can certainly speak on some of it. I think Van Buren, for instance, was chosen because there's a lot of vacancy on that street and a lot of condemned houses, and we are responsible for at least one of them. So I think that would be a really great project to get done. It's also, these were also based on which ones are sort of practical choices given our very short time frame to get this done. 248 Main, and this will be a big discussion at the committee, I think, but has been probably the house, one of 2 or 3 that have gotten kind of the most attention from the public. And I think showing progress on that is going to be important, and showing that we can effectively do affordable housing in a neighborhood like that, I think is really important, both for the land bank to be able to show that and for the public to be able to understand it and why it's important and how it actually works. So yeah, we can get into any of those as much as you guys want, but
Yeah, Daniel, this is Bob Dennison, because I want to make sure Tanya knows. I only have 4 that you said. Let me review them and you can tell me which one I missed. 248 Main, 177 Marie, 237 East Union, and I agree with you about East Union. 64 Van Buren, what's next? What did I leave out?
this is Daniel, 174 Hasbrook.
174 Hasbrook, okay.
Did I not say that? Did I say that?
Oh, I don't know, it doesn't matter, I got it now, okay.
Okay. 174 Hasbrook is the house that potentially, and you know, everything is so up in the air right now, but hopefully we have a organization looking to partner that works with local makers and designers who essentially want us to kind of bring it to the point of finish work and have them go in and put in a real nice kitchen and bathrooms, and we still get to own it and dispose as we see fit, but they get to showcase, you know, local work, which is a cool concept and definitely save us some money. So yeah, so we'll be discussing all of that at the committee meeting, I think, and hopefully we'll have some updates from legal on the legwork that we've already done. I don't think we're we're scrapping things we've done by any means. So I don't want to feel like that time was wasted, but I think finally, like, we really have some qualified direction, which is super exciting, as Alana I think can attest. So oh, Mike, do we have to place committee members, right, for existing committees? So
You would be appointing the committee members, and at the annual board meeting, those would be officially codified, is the way the bylaws read. But your appointments are what is on the agenda tonight.
okay, so I think I have either spoken with everybody or Mike certainly has. So I think that we are kind of giving everybody what they were hoping to do and where they thought they could be useful. So hold on, I have to pull this list up. Sorry, Caitlin, can you remind me where it is posted, the document?
In the S drive, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hold, please.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, we could also circle back to it.
I did just send you an email, Daniel, with, I think, the info.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay. So I don't have to reappoint people, right, that are already there? Okay. So I wanted to appoint Bob to the Acquisition and Disposition Committee. I have to confirm with Aneshka. The thing with the committees is that we can have maximum 4 members on one committee. So Aneshka has sort of stepped in to work with Acquisition and Disposition, but I'm not positive if she wants to be on the committee. And in her absence, I'm not going to appoint her officially. So I think that's it for that. If Bob, you would be so kind to join us, we're excited to have you. Communications, I'd like to appoint Serena to join, if she would be willing. Finance, I'm not sure if I ever, do I appoint myself? Sure. I can't remember if I'm officially on finance, but I guess now I am. Karen has graciously agreed, so I would like to appoint her. Omari remains treasurer. Steve is also on the committee, and Mandy is our CFO, so she will be at those meetings. And sorry.
Daniel, do we have too many then on finance now?
No.
Yeah.
Me, Karen, Omari, and Steve.
That's 4.
We can have 4, right? Or no?
Yeah, we can have 4 as long as we have like a tie-breaking procedure in place. And I was hoping to appoint Serena to governance, if willing.
Yes, I think we had discussed that. This is Serena. That's great. So communication and governance.
If you're up for it.
I just let me know when the meetings are, and I'll do my best to accommodate.
Very cool. Okay, did I miss anything or anyone with that? I'm sorry. I should have confirmed this before. I guess put another way, does anybody want to leave a committee that they're on or join a committee that they're not on? Okay, we did it. And then, speaking of committees, so Mike and I talked about potentially creating a advisory design committee. So this would basically be, and there is a resolution in the board packet to create essentially a formalized kind of standards of how the land bank undertakes our renovation work, basically to ensure that we are sensitively renovating, considering the history in the neighborhood, and developing kind of best practices around that. I think it's a little unclear sort of how these things are going to play out between us and affordable housing developers, and whether they'll be like design build contractors or they'll need more detail in terms of like a design sheet. But to me, this is, I think, is also a good opportunity to potentially bring in community members who aren't board members but would like to serve on a committee. We can do that. And so I think Kingston has a lot of highly qualified folks that would be great for that, and maybe a good way to sort of bring more voices into the fold in that arena. So did everybody get a chance to read the resolution? Do I read it aloud?
I'm so sorry, I don't see it in the materials that I got. I see a summary sort of on the last page, but I don't see the actual resolution. No.
I think same thing. Sorry, I might have used the wrong word too. But
I think, Dan, if you read the resolution, read kind of your summary, which should be a resolution. I think as part of the notes, we can kind of put it in resolution format. I think if you read it out loud, and then everyone can kind of have that entered into the secretary's report.
Okay, I'll do that. So on June 1st, 2020, on this date, it is hereby resolved by the Board of the Kingston City Land Bank to establish an advisory design committee. The purpose of this committee is to establish various specific general standards for preserving existing elements of buildings that the land bank may acquire. The design committee will codify these explicit design standards into a formal document, which may be revised from time to time. This document will serve as a list of best practices that individuals or organizations seeking to bid construction work on real estate properties owned or controlled by the land bank should consider when submitting responses to requests for proposals for construction work issued by the land bank.
I can move that we, move that.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
I just don't like that. I'm unclear like on this may be a really dumb question, but does anything that talks about sort of historic preservation or anything, is there anything that like requires some special fancy certification that's going to like exclude certain folks from being able to work on any of these projects, or is this like a really general thing?
No, I don't think so. And I think my understanding is that it would apply more for internal, like work that we are doing. It's definitely not meant to be limiting in any way, but kind of we're not in the business of covering every house in vinyl and calling it a restoration. If that's
But I mean, it's not like you have to have qualifications, some fancy stained glass or Victorian, like,
no.
what I don't even know any of the words because I'm not a historic preservation person, but like, it's not going to be like that. I
No,
just want to make sure that it's not. Okay.
no. It's much more preservation. I think if not I'm not sure exactly if we would not be asking people to put prohibitively expensive things in or on building. I think it would be more, here's what we don't do in terms of screwing up old buildings. And the part of the reason for this, from my perspective, is that Houston doesn't have large areas of historically protected buildings, so I don't think any of our potential structures fall within any kind of historic protection. And there's possibly one that could receive some kind of like national registration, but honestly, those things become really limiting and very expensive to renovate. So it would be smarter for us to have kind of an internal set of standards that I think says to the community we're not interested in phoning it in that perspective. We want to take care to do a good job, pretty much.
Daniel, this is Bob Dennison again, in case time is off. Well, give me an example. Can you give me an example of what this document would say or require? You're bound by the building code, so everything's going to have to conform to the building code. So beyond that, what kind of a requirement can you give me an example of a requirement that would exist in this document?
So obviously these things would have to be voted on. Friends of Historic Kingston has a pretty good kind of pamphlet of like general standards. So for instance, if we were to renovate, if we were to take on 111 Down Street, that house has its original wood siding, original shingle work. It's pretty much all original. This document would say it is prohibited to cover that house in vinyl and rip out all the.
But on each individual building that we do, I assume somebody's going to look at what they're going to do. There should be some approval process somewhere in the process about what they're going to do to the building. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, and I think that's why this committee should exist, is that currently that's kind of a hole. And I mean, I think Bill is no longer our housing rehab specialist, but he was getting very caught up in kind of choosing light fixtures and choosing things that, I don't think need or should be his job. Kingston has a pretty robust design community and historic preservation community, and I think if we can tap into those resources, we're better off.
Yeah, I look at a building like the one on East Union, where there's clearly not a lot of detail there that we care about long term. But I worry about, the example that you gave of a historic structure, which is more than 50 years old, therefore eligible for inclusion in a historic register, which we don't want to do necessarily. As you point out, it's expensive and cumbersome to do that. But we also don't want its character to be destroyed. I think I wonder if it's how difficult that it is to create a document that will cover both extremes.
If that's a real question, I don't think it's difficult. But
I think one of the things that I would kind of add to this conversation quickly was that it's kind of like a, you know, I don't think it's going to get to the level of, say, being a regulating manual, but I do think that could be a guidebook for us. And I think that it would allow us to put some of our kind of, again, more vision and goals too about what we want to do with some historic properties if we have them, as well as, you know, when there are instances where we can preserve original wood or we can preserve original windows, you know, we will try our best. We may end up taking at some point a historic home that is beyond repair, and, you know, we may have to tear it down, and that may be completely anti what this design committee wants, but we, again, are going to be getting a lot of properties that we are the kind of the property owner of last resort. And so, you know, again, I think it's important to have kind of a design guidebook that can help, you know, guide our decisions, and I think be broad enough to cover, you know, the wide variety of housing types that we have in Kingston, but also in certain areas be specific enough that can at least give really any of us that pick up the book to kind of get a general sense of how we care about properties. And I think that's my take on it. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm sorry, Daniel, if I'm overstepping, but I feel like that's kind of the sense that I would get, and that I think others in the community would look to us to have, so that, you know, they don't think that we're shooting from the hip when it comes to securing some of these, you know, unique properties. And I think it will also calm fears that we are also taking these types of things into consideration, and that, you know, we do recognize and kind of a value statement of what we are looking at when we look at these properties, and that we're not just looking at it as, oh, you know, we could, you know, flip this real quick and not care about any of the original parts of the building. I think that this would prove otherwise to people who read it.
Okay, I understand. That's good. The other piece that just dawned on me as you were talking is this could be a mechanism whereby we talk about things like energy efficiency and materials that are sustainable, you know, as a preference kind of thing, as a guidebook. So, okay, I get it now.
And that sort of feeds into what I would also add is that I think it financially makes sense, both from the standpoint of if you have people who know how to do this and know how to do it affordably, but still well and meet a high standard, it is better for the land bank. So we're not throwing money away, and it's better for the future buyer, and the value of that home, I think, holding over time. So that's kind of my elevator pitch, I guess.
So you're looking for.
Well, so we need to vote to authorize the creation of the committee, and then I would say if anybody's specifically interested in joining, please email me. And I think if there's community members, you know, that might be interested, I think that this, more than any other committee, probably is a easy kind of way to get involved with the land bank without serving on the board. So can I move to create the advisory design committee?
Yeah, I'll second
that. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. Yeah, so I guess I'll talk to Mike about this more, but I guess if I can appoint people next time, if we have people, then that's what we'll do.
Can I just add one thing about this resolution? I think it would be good to charge this committee, that design committee, with looking for funding sources to support, you know, any kind of historic preservation or energy efficiency or whatever other areas they covered in their standards. Yeah, that'd be a good part of that.
I think that's a great idea. Any other announcements? New business? All right. Then everybody stay safe. I know it's an incredibly difficult time for our country. While we've been on this call, some really awful things have been happening. So please stay safe. Hold your loved ones tight, and we'll talk soon. Thank you. Have a
Do you
good
need
night.
a motion to adjourn, Daniel?
Oh, motion to adjourn. I can't just do it.
Yeah.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Have a good night. Thank you, guys.
You too.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
everyone.
Good night.